You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, basketball is back. How are you doing?
The Superior Valley sports team is back, and I can say that after they demolished the Los Angeles Lakers. You got to take the wins while they come. Demolished the Lakers in Game 1 of the preseason. Meanwhile, I know the Cardinals lost today, and I know the Mercury are down 0-2 in their series.
Yeah.
So we're going to take this opportunity for 5 minutes to say that maybe the Phoenix Suns are your most
the pressure's
exciting
on.
Valley team for now. Of course, we have a full
6
days until the next, or 5 days at this point, until the next preseason game. So we have a week to be high on our own supply about the Suns here.
Yes. Let me just do like a early podcast caveat of small sample size, so that people don't have to tell us that we're overreacting. The plan for this episode is to overreact. I want to. It's fun to overreact. We have the opportunity to do it here, but there's been one preseason game. Basketball is back, so that's all we have to talk about. Let's break down as much as we can from it. Just to start, I want to say there was no Mark Williams, no Jalen Green, no Kobe Bryant for some reason as well, who was healthy, just didn't play. Jalen Green, mild hamstring strain. Mark Williams, no listed injury, just holding him out. I don't know. He said, I don't know if
general
he saw this, but Dwayne,
fitness. I'm not sure what we would call that one.
Yeah, strength training. I don't know. He said to Dwayne that he plans on playing Game 1 of the regular season.
Okay.
So we have that. He plans on playing. Whether or not the Suns say he's ready is up to them. It sounds like they have some sort of health plan to get him. So we have that. The Lakers side of the ball, which we have to say, otherwise Lakers fans will be up our asses here.
Lakers
no
fans
Luka,
aren't
no
listening to
LeBron.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you never know, man. They're pretty, I don't know. No Luka, no LeBron. So the Suns are playing, missing two starters as well, but no starters at the level of Luka and LeBron, of course. The Lakers are missing two starters, but they're their two best players by a massive margin. But having said all that, the Suns killed them. And they just looked way more prepared, which is what J.J. Redick said after the game. He said, this Suns team has been in the gym since the beginning of September, and this Lakers team has not. So, giving the Suns credit for the work that they did. But overall, we'll start there. Devin Booker, Grayson Allen, Dylan Brooks, Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro. First of all, let's start there. Was that a surprise? Oso Ighodaro in the starting lineup?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call it a shock necessarily. Not like, oh my God, I can't believe Jordan Ott went with Oso Ighodaro as the starter, but more so not just the fact that he started to me, but he played... Hold on, I have the box score up. He played 26 minutes.
26 minutes,
And keep in mind, that's basically 26 minutes through the first 3 quarters, at which point it was a blowout, and they were free to finally empty the bench. But that's a lot in a preseason game where you're generally trying to get a look at more or less everyone in your rotation anyway. So, yeah, definitely we'll have some stuff to say on Oso later. I think he was one of the big stories to come out of Game 1, is maybe he's going to play a bigger role on this team than we anticipated.
I think, and I said it before, I was talking a lot about who the starting lineup would be for this game. And, we had a conversation about a week and a half ago about who will it be if Mark Williams doesn't play. And, my first thought when we talked about it then was, I think it'll say a lot about how the coaching staff feels about the centers, who they start in this game. Now, they could just change it for the next game. If Mark Williams doesn't play, start Nick Richards, start Malawach even, who only played 10 minutes. They could start either one of those guys. Instead of Mark Williams. But for now, they started Oso Ighodaro. And I think in this game in particular, without Jalen Green, they wanted a team full of players who could make some level of plays for other players on the floor. So having Oso Ighodaro in there, who did end up with 2 assists, it's nice to have somebody who could make, and he had both assists were nice passes, especially the one to the cutting Grayson Allen for the layup. Mm-hmm. But they put him in there, I think, to make up for the lack of playmaking that comes from Jalen Green not being in the lineup. Jalen Green, maybe not the best passer, but definitely someone who can create lanes with his drives and his dribbling. It was fun to see him in there.
Even with Jalen Green in there, it's like the quick decision making that Oso is capable of already so early in his career. It exemplifies everything that we've been led to believe, that this is what Jordan Ott is prioritizing in his offense, right? Heavy ball movement off the ball, and just a level of pace that they were not able to keep up with last year, that they're now trying to jack up their pace with younger players. But you understand why a guy like Oso plays so much. Mark Williams, I think he's capable of making reads too once he gets in there, but certainly the level of reads and the speed with which Oso makes decisions is way quicker than anything Nick Richards or Malawach are capable of. And it's like, watching Oso in Game 1 here against the Lakers, every time an action died, it's like they could just pass the ball to the middle of the floor and Oso's there and you could reset. And then, have him turn it into a handoff or run a guy around him.
Very quickly is what he does that, yeah.
Right, exactly. And, so his ability to move the ball side to side was huge for them. And, I don't think that's going to be a one-game thing. We know Jordan Ott's going to prioritize that throughout the season, and that's going to be one of the main reasons that maybe Oso stays on the floor. Again, a lot more than maybe we expected. Also, some of these guys, you could say LeBron was out, Luka was out. Oso had a real matchup. I know it's easy to make fun of this guy, and maybe we're about to, but he went against DeAndre Ayton, a quote-unquote max contract center, former max contract
center. A guy who,
center.
The day before this game, Lakers fans were calling the 5th best center in the NBA, DeAndre Ayton. Yeah.
I didn't see that, but that's fucking hilarious. DeAndre Ayton's stat line in this game against the undersized Oso Ighodaro. 1 point on 0 of 2 shooting, 8 rebounds, and 4 turnovers. That is what DeAndre Ayton did against Oso, and I think,
He shot 2 free throws, right?
Right.
I saw somebody on Reddit say, wow, he had a career high in free throw attempts in this game.
His lone point, DeAndre's, was from the free throw line. We'll have to talk about Oso's free throw shooting.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything to say about that other than, dude, if you want to be an NBA player, you have to.
He's just going to get hammered.
He's
going to get hammered going to the rim every single time he goes to the rim if he continues. He is 1 for 6 in this game.
Right. But all this just to say, it wasn't Oso like going off again. And he didn't even go off statistically like he had 15 points or anything, but it wasn't him holding his own against, Jackson Hayes. He was holding himself against who is going to be the Lakers, a prospective playoff team, their starting center. So yeah, really, really impressive game for Oso. He was massive. Just generally.
Yes,
go ahead.
That's where I wanted to go to. Yes.
You want to go like generally with the team.
Yes, because here's what I want to describe what I saw. this team wanted to set the tone for what the expectations are for this season in this preseason game. They did not look at this as, oh, it's preseason, let's get our legs under us. Oh, it's the Lakers without Luka and LeBron, let's play, a little less hard. I'm going to describe, I think I might be calling this era as if it continues, I'm going to be calling it try hard basketball, because it was very clearly a team that, for all intents and purposes, for maybe the players like DeAndre Ayton that were treating it more like a preseason game, or maybe even Lakers fans who are watching it going, why are the Suns players trying so hard right now? That's the tone they want to set.
By the way,
the entire year.
If any of you people are the types who are a little bit too online and you're getting into arguments with Lakers fans online, or you're seeing the comments, be it, I don't know, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, wherever you are, when they say things like they're playing like it's their NBA finals out there, that's how you know you've already won, and you're so deep in their heads. Like they are coping so hard when they start saying things like that. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it's the preseason. You should have players who fucking try. And now, unlike
especially after last year. Yeah.
Exactly. Unlike the last 2 years, the Suns actually have players who try. Yeah, call it what you will. Try hard basketball, give a shit hoops is what I might go with. Just something on the order of that concept that was so foreign to us for the past 2 years. I think the reason that this game one was so awesome is, we could talk about, like, I have a bunch of statistics and whatever. Like, who knows what statistics are going to bear out over a larger sample size and what aren't. If this was a game where the Suns shot, like, I'm looking at the box score here. They shot 42% from the field. They shot 31% from three and 54% from the free throw line. Again, we got to work on those free throws, guys. That's going to be a big issue across the board, I have a feeling, this year. But those are bad splits, and they won by 22 points. And it doesn't matter who you're playing against. The Lakers, like I said, DeAndre Ayton was out there. Austin Reeves is a 20-point per game playmaker who was out there. Rui was out there. All sorts of NBA players were out there.
They had
for the
a
Lakers.
huge size advantage too. A massive size advantage.
It's not like they were playing nobodies. If the Suns had just come out and they won by 20 points because they shot 50% from deep, because that'll happen sometimes. Sometimes Grayson might make 5 threes. Dylan Brooks might make 5 threes. Royce might make, several threes. And suddenly it's like you're blowing a team out. That still would have been cool. It's cool to watch the team win. But if that was just the reason they won, it would be so much easier to write it off and just say, okay, it's game one of preseason, whatever. That's not how the game went. The game went, they took way more shots than the Lakers. They took 90 field goal attempts. The Lakers took 74. They out-rebounded them. They got more steals. They applied full court pressure. They were diving for loose balls. And also sometimes they hit shots. But the way they just completely threw the first punch, which is something that Ryan Dunn said in one of his interviews out of training camp, that's what they were focused on, is throwing the first punch and then never letting up in terms of their intensity. That is the thing to hold on to for optimism if you're a Suns fan. That tells you they've already bought in to what Jordan Ott is saying, that the leaders on this team, the older veterans, are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The younger players are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And from there, like, they're going to have games where they shoot well. They're going to have games where they shoot poorly. But if they always play with this level of intensity, they're going to win some games. They're going to be a solid team. I don't see them as, I think I saw a Bleacher Report article. I don't know who it was written by, if it was written by our friend Dan or maybe someone else at Bleacher Report. But this week that came out and predicted that the Suns would be 26-56. If they play like this, that's going to look like a completely asinine take at the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, there's an element of watching a team do what the coaches are asking in preseason game one, and then are they doing it in game 43? Are they doing it in game 65? Because look, they when they first got Bradley Beal, first preseason game, Bradley Beal shot 10 threes, Devin Booker shot 9 threes. Like, I remember that game. Maybe the stat's not quite right, but like, I remember that game thinking, wow, if they play like this, they're going to have an amazing offense. And then of course that sort of devolved over time. And I think in particular in this sort of try hard basketball era, if we're going to stick with that here, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy to play like they were in this game. They were picking guys up, 3/4 court. They were guarding every out of bounds ball. Even just in half court defense, they were picking guys up higher in the half court. And then on offense, they were playing fast, not just fast in transition, but fast in the half court. One of the things that drove me insane about the Suns last year, and it was Bradley Beal, I think, was the worst culprit of this throughout his entire time, is not sprinting into screens, not running fast off ball movements, just sort of jogging and limping up to the ball. They were not doing that in this game. That takes a lot of effort. That takes a lot of energy. If you watch the Cavs last year, a lot of guys played relatively low minutes compared to, the star players played relatively low minutes compared to other teams. They had the depth to come in and allow them to play that hard all the time. So it kind of takes that kind of effort, that kind of focus, and that kind of energy, but also some level of depth to continue that throughout an entire season. So we need them to continue to do that. But I agree with you. If this is something that they can do consistently on a consistent basis, maybe they won't be a contender. Yeah, they won't be a contender because they don't have the talent for that. Maybe they won't even be a great team, but they're going to catch teams off guard on nights and win games that they quote unquote shouldn't be. Because that's what happens when you have a group of guys that are willing to try really hard. And I really, really think Dillon Brooks has a lot to do with that. I'm going to give him credit right off the bat here because this is preseason game 1. He's been in the NBA a long time, right? He's what is he, 30? He's been in the NBA for a while now.
At least. Yeah, he's 30, I think.
Yeah, I think 30, 31, if I'm not mistaken. But here's the thing, though. Regardless of all that, he treated this game like he understood exactly what the coaching staff was asking of him. He dove on the floor. Everyone watching the game knows the play. He dove on the floor. If you're just following along online, you probably saw it too.
He turns 30 in January, so he's still 29. But he's been in the league a while, right?
Been in the league a while, and he's playing his ass off in this first game, trying very hard, being cocky, getting up into guys defensively, and just doing all the things that you want guys who are in the starting lineup to embody so that other guys feel that effort, they feel that energy because of what he's doing, and they're also going to do that. And I think he really set the tone defensively. I also think he has the role he's going to play on offense, which we could talk about in more detail, is going to be pretty interesting too, because they're going to move him off the ball quite a bit, it appears.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say, because I checked while you were talking to that Bleacher Report prediction that they'd be 26 and 56. That was Grant Hughes. I knew our friend Dan would never do us like that, so shout out Dan.
You get us at over 30 at least. Yeah.
Dan might say 32 and 50, but that's not 26 and 56. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, and as for Dillon Brooks, I'm glad you talked about his offense. The defense speaks for itself. I mean, he's just out there. He's diving after balls. He's picking up 75 feet. He's
super physical.
Super physical. Just going to be a pain. Going to be a pain constantly in the other teams behind. Offensively, I was kind of shocked at the Dillon Brooks in a positive way that we saw in Game 1. Maybe it's an indication that I wasn't watching him enough in Houston because I know this is already somewhat of a transformation he's gone under, but still, it felt like even more. The Dillon Brooks I know in Memphis is taking, especially in a game like Jalen Green didn't play, right? One of their biggest ball handlers, initiators on this team, the number 2, did not play. In theory, that leaves a void for someone else to pick up some ball handling opportunities and even greater than that, pick up some shots. The Dillon Brooks I know in Memphis, if he plays 25 minutes in a preseason game like that, where there's no clear-cut number 2, he's taking 17 shots. He's coming out there, he's taking, and not 17 threes, he's taking a bunch of weak off-dribble mid-range shots. He's throwing sky floaters up at the rim that have a 20% chance of going in. That is the Dillon Brooks historically that I know. And it would have been so easy for him to come out in the game the other night. And again, he played 25 minutes. He was a plus 22. So the Suns' entire margin of victory you could attribute to Dillon Brooks if you look at the box score. It would have been so easy for him to come out, play 25 minutes, and take 15 shots. And he didn't. He showed a ton of restraint. He basically only took threes, and he shot 3 for 4 from deep. I wouldn't have even minded if he took some extra shots, but it felt
the
like
one other shot he took was off the dribble with the shot clock expiring.
It felt like he was constantly exerting effort to make sure that he was making the extra pass, making the right read. he was super locked into like a team-based scheme on offense. And if that's the Dylan Brooks we're going to get this year, I mean, I would wait and see. Like, I'm not, again, just based on one game, I wouldn't say that this is just who he is now, is just like a super locked in role player or whatever. Like, I still think he's probably going to take some dumb shots. And sometimes you'll sometimes you'll need Dylan Brooks to just take off the dribble shots on this team because maybe there's no one else who's going to do it. But I was really impressed with his level of restraint against the Lakers. I've just never seen it before.
You're going to run out of coffee at some point, so you might as well order some now. Take out your phone, go to your computer, go to alchemyroaster.com. That's alchemyroaster.com and buy some coffee now. Alchemy Roast is a Metro Phoenix-based coffee roaster that focuses on the transformational process of coffee from seed to cup. They're about more than just coffee. They're about passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast. And they do it ethically. That's right, ethical beans. You can get 10% off your coffee order now by using the promo code TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com. That's TIMELINE at alchemyroaster.com in the promo code section of your checkout. Get some great coffee, support a local Phoenix business that makes excellent coffee, and support us on the podcast by using that promo code. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE for the best coffee you can get.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
I think I really love this time of year because, well, particularly for the Suns, because there's a new coach every year, we get to see what the changes are on the offense and defensive scheme. And, you know, speaking of Dylan Brooks and his role offensively, the thing that I noted online, and for those who haven't seen it, I posted a clip talking about how the Suns move in and out of corners off the ball. The plans for the off-ball movement for this team are so intricate and so meticulously timed with the on-ball actions that if guys can shoot well off of those passes, Devin Booker's going to hit the over on the assists that we put on our podcast pretty easily. In fact, in this game, he played, 25 minutes, and he had, let me check actually, 25 minutes, and he had 7 assists. 24 points and 7 assists in that time. The way that they move off the ball is, I think, pretty fascinating. For example, one of the plays I posted was a DHO, a dribble handoff coming off of the left wing going towards the right wing, and Dillon Brooks often is in that right corner. As the dribble handoff is moving, Dillon Brooks will cut across the basket towards the left corner, and the player on the right wing will drop into the right corner. And, as far as that sounds relatively simple, but if you watch the way it's timed, it's meticulously designed to attack the help defense as much as possible, so that as soon as the help comes towards the ball, that player is moving away from that help defense into the open spots of the floor that can open up a lot of shots. And by the way, if it doesn't open up that corner, it likely opens a shot at the rim for guys, because either that help defense isn't coming off for Devin Booker, who can either get to the rim or pull up on a mid-range shot, or if it's coming from Dillon Brooks cutting towards the rim, that's an easy dump-off pass to Dillon Brooks under the rim, and then you get a layup off of that. And, it's so like, it sounds like something simple, and truthfully, there's a chance that a lot of NBA teams are doing stuff like this, but as we know, as Suns fans, not every personnel will do this. Not every personnel is willing to do this. You have players in the NBA that don't want to play like this. They want to play differently because they feel it suits their skill set a little bit better. But if the Suns do it right, if they have that timing right, I think they can actually create a lot of open looks, even with the personnel they have. In this game, they had one ball handler in that starting lineup, and they scored over 30 points in both the first and third quarters when they played.
And
right when that starting lineup played.
Had 29 assists in a preseason game with, to your point, one good ball handler. Yeah, they're going to create a lot. It's a
fascinating thing to see that and actually figure out the type of actions they're going to run this time of year.
They're just going to create a lot of chaos. I can't think of a single player in this rotation who I don't think is, who I wouldn't describe, at least to some extent, as being sacrificial in the way that they play on offense, being willing to screen off the ball, being willing to screen, even when it means that, they're unlikely to be the one who is benefiting from the way in which they're moving. Maybe they're being used as a decoy. There's going to be a lot of movement in the offense, and already you're seeing the beneficiaries. Ryan Dunn had a quiet game last night in the sense that he only scored twice. Both times he scored were on backdoor cuts.
Yeah, he's a great cutter.
Both of his baskets. It just you talk about that meticulous timing, Ryan's ability, because we know. Yeah, he if he wants to stay on the floor, he needs to make open corner threes. Obviously, that's going to be a big part of his game. But also, it's going to be a big part built into the offense this year that Ryan is going to be timing those cuts to the basket and trying to get behind the defense and behind the help, more specifically. Oso, going to be another one of those guys, just constantly sitting in the dunker spot. Nick Richards was a beneficiary, knowing when to use your big body to kind of get beneath the defense, but then also seal them off so that you can open yourself up for a dunk. Nick Richards did that at one point. He was.
He had a good game.
He had an awesome seal. Colin Gillespie dribbled from the corner, and Nick Richards sealed his, I don't remember who was defending him, maybe Jackson Hayes, sealed Jackson Hayes off, got the bounce pass, and threw down a rip-roaring one-handed tomahawk. It was awesome. Every single big played well, and all of the wings, they were moving, they were cutting, they were doing all of this stuff. So I don't know. I mean, in terms of what criticisms I have of the Suns based on the game the other night, it's very few, because this was almost like a perfect game that they played. I know that I know LeBron didn't play.
Ryan Dunn 5 fouls, Oso Agudaro 5 fouls, Dillon Brooks 4 fouls, and I honestly, I almost feel like this is by design. They want to look as physical as possible in preseason to get the refs sort of accustomed to how they're going to play right away. It's a lot of fouls for 3 guys.
No, that's fair. That's fair. The only other thing I can think of is, again, the free throw thing. They shot 14 of 26. If they shot free throws like a normal team, they win by 30 instead of 22.
Yeah.
If they shoot a normal,
it's mostly for the guys who played. It's mostly Oso Agudaro bringing that percentage down pretty dramatically.
Oso shot 1 for 6.
Yeah.
Nick Richards was 1 for 3,
which is it's 3.
Malawach was 2 for 4. So it was just the bigs. It really was.
Yeah, it's just the bigs. Yeah. And so actually, let's talk about another guy that was in the starting lineup, Grayson Allen. And as I was thinking about the offense, there was this one play in semi-transition where Grayson Allen was sort of the trailer on the play, and he passed the ball up to Devin Booker or to someone, and they started some sort of either pick and roll or dribble handoff action where the player in the corner cuts across the basket. And there was a moment in the play where Grayson Allen was just kind of dogging it a little bit, jogging back. As soon as the action started, he went to a full sprint because he could cut into that wing three. If you remember, he had a wing three in semi-transition that was wide open. And I almost feel like, is this by design? Like, is he literally, like you're playing dead a little bit on this play? It almost
call
felt
an ambulance,
like it was,
but not for me.
Yes,
vibes,
exactly. It almost felt I have it on my phone, so maybe I'll post
I don't
it
remember
online
that play.
this.
You'll have to post it.
Yeah, and so Grayson Allen, I thought, like I've been talking about it with Grayson Allen. I truly feel like this year is going to be a big year for him. I know I keep saying it. But this game, it helps my agenda, so I have to bring it up now. Plus 20 in this game, and he just looks really good. He looks a little bit faster, I think. He's doing a lot of stuff dribbling, which maybe he won't do a ton of, but if he's able to do a little bit of it, I think he could really benefit. But the other reason I think that he's going to have a big season is, as I was watching the Cleveland offense, the guys who start at the wing and sink into the corner for the corner threes, it's technically an off movement 3-point shot. Now, technically, you're getting your feet set behind that corner 3-point line and you're shooting, but you don't have a ton of time to do that. You have to be pretty good at a little bit of movement before your shot to be able to do that. The Suns have, how many guys are good at that right now on the team? Probably Grayson Allen is the best on the team at it. Royce O'Neal has a little bit of it, but almost prefers to step into a three rather than moving side to side on threes. And then maybe we'll see if Nigel Hayes-Davis can do it. We're hoping he can do it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, maybe some of Devin Booker and Jalen Green could do it. But those guys are different, right? Because they have bigger responsibilities than that. You need guys off the ball to be able to do it.
Brooks,
and this was a game where... Oh, Brooks. Yeah, Brooks is a good one, too.
Yeah.
This was a game where you really saw how Grayson Allen is capable of doing that. And I think there's a chance that he is just going to get a lot of open 3-point attempts early on. And if he can capitalize on those threes, which, traditionally for the Suns, he's shot over 40%. Basically, both seasons he was on the Suns and can shoot significantly better than that. I think there's a chance he has a pretty big season for the team.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. I continue to be appreciative just of Grayson's ability. Like, we know he's not good at everything, of course, but his ability to at least try and be a Swiss Army knife in a situation like this, I'm curious what his offense looks like. Maybe Jalen Green, grade 1 hamstring strain. I don't know if we've said that on the episode yet. Probably isn't going to play in preseason. So I don't know if we're going to see, Grayson kind of what his offense looks like with Jalen Green until the regular season starts. But at least in these games, was able to sink into those corners, take a lot of threes, like you're saying, but also was giving an honest effort at driving the ball, attacking the rim, trying to put pressure on the defense, and I thought was mostly effective. He got blocked, I think, maybe a couple of times at the rim, but just his ability to be, like, out of all those wing players, kind of the one who maybe is best at, like, trying to be at least a little bit of a playmaker and at least a little bit of a rim threat, just to keep the defense on their toes and honest. I always have to appreciate that Grayson, tries his hand at everything.
Yeah, out of Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, the sort of 3 veteran wing 2-3 type players, Grayson's probably the most athletic going to the rim, which is funny to say. But like Royce O'Neal doesn't really have much athleticism going to the rim, and neither does Dylan Brooks really. They're both athletic in different ways, but Grayson Allen, a little bit more pop in that way. And so, obviously Ryan Dunn is going to have more than that. Also, Iguodala is going to have more than that. But they can't quite be trusted in the way that Grayson Allen is going to have to be trusted in this game. So, I think he's going to have such a green light to shoot. They shot a ton of threes in this game, and I think as a percentage of their total shot attempts, they're going to do that throughout the entire season. Not just because that's just the plan for every team, but I also think the system that we saw, if they do run that in the way that could benefit them, I think that that's just going to open up a lot of 3-point shots. So they're going to be the best shots to take. It's not just dribbling it down, shooting a 3 like the Celtics tend to do.
Yeah.
I think there's just going to be a lot of open ones.
I'd be really curious. I don't know if anyone's asked Ott a question about this, because I seem to recall, like, maybe when Frank Vogel was coach, that literally there were numbers he was giving them, like, we want you to shoot 35, we want you to shoot 40. I would just be curious if Ott has even had to do that with this team and this personnel, like if there's any sort of notion of we want to shoot this many threes a game, or if it's just, understanding that the pace and the spacing with the players you have now, it's going to be a lot easier to get those looks, and then you just trust guys to make the right reads. I would be curious. But yeah, it looks foreign being a Suns fan the way the last couple of years have gone. But here you are in game 1 of preseason with a new team, and they take 40 3-point attempts, but they also get to the free throw line a ton. And yes, they didn't make those free throws, but the fact that they did both is huge. That's like what every NBA team in theory on paper is trying to do right now, but only so many of them are successful at it. And certainly the last 2 years, the Suns were not successful at doing either of those things.
Dylan Brooks said post-game that he thought that they ran their sets to perfection. They ran them very well in this game. In fact, I watched the whole game and, just focused on having fun the first time. And then he said that and I said, I'm going back and watching again. So I watched it again and I really focused. I kind of fast forwarded through the defense and really focused on the offense, watching plays 2 or 3 times at times, just to really focus on what they were doing. Something Jordan Ott said during training camp that stuck out to me in watching the second time was there are sets. They have sets. You have to have sets, right? Especially for when you're taking the ball out of bounds, stuff like that. But it seems as though the offense is predicated on when the ball is here and you're standing here, this is what you do. This is what the plan is. So there is some level of freestyle basketball built into that, because sometimes a set goes off the rails a little bit. And what you don't want, and this is what happened with the Suns a lot in the previous few years, what you don't want is when those sets don't work the way that they're intended, nobody knows what to do. Everyone just stands around. And then they say, okay, Kevin Durant, which, by the way, when he did it, it was still a good shot. Take whatever shot you want. We're going to let you go one-on-one. The Suns don't have a Kevin Durant now. If the play does not work in the way that it's intended, and the ball is on the left wing and you're standing in the right corner, now you know what to do, because there's some level of understanding of what's supposed to happen. Right, and when you watch them play, you could see those principles in action, and they're probably going to build as the season progresses.
Everyone knows that if the ball movement stops, like the way that they're being asked to be conditioned and to play this year is going to be really hard on them to both be constantly in motion in offense, but then also picking up at way higher levels on defense. It takes a lot more out of the players, but it's because everyone knows that if that ball movement stops and now you have a Jalen Green ISO, you have a Dylan Brooks ISO. With Booker, maybe it'd be okay. With the rest of the guys on the team, like, you're looking at a 35% shot at best. It's not going to be good outcomes. And that's why you need to get down there faster, work before the defense is set, and then constantly be in motion and understand your spacing on the floor at all times.
I think that
it's
challenge,
a reason, by the way. I know, again, we're not going to see Jalen in preseason, it seems, but
yeah,
Houston's offense, just when I think, like, the optimistic case for what Jalen Green could be on the Suns is that if he buys into this, it is the total antithesis of what Houston was.
Mm-hmm.
The Suns in yesterday's game, do I have the stat here? Yes, I still have it. The Suns had 29 assists on 38 made baskets. That's an assisted rate of 76%. That would be, like, by far first in the NBA based on last year's data. If you extrapolated it out, they're not going to assist 3/4 of their baskets in every game, right? But, like, that, in theory, that's above the Warriors. It's above the Spurs. It's above the, I don't know who else is up there. The Warriors,
Nuggets,
Spurs,
maybe, yeah.
The Nuggets. That's a great one. Like, all these teams that you sort of associate with high levels of ball movement that are consistently first, second, third in this stat, and usually around 70%. Dead last in the NBA last year in this stat, the Houston Rockets, who were a good team, but only 55% of their field goals made were assisted last year. And not only was that dead last, that was dead last by 3%. 29th were the Philadelphia 76ers at 58. So they were far and away last in this stat. And a lot of that is just, that's how Jalen Green was playing. But he's never been asked to do anything else.
That's how they all played.
It is exciting that now he is being asked to do something else, and we're going to see how he responds to that challenge.
But now they have KD, so they'll probably move around off the ball quite a bit. The one thing I'll say, I was thinking about it too as you're talking. Josh Bartlestein said it would be nice for this team to sort of adopt Devin Booker's personality as a whole when it comes to basketball. And that's kind of what you're describing. Like there's some level of sacrificial personality that Devin Booker has in basketball, which is sort of exemplified by his time with Team USA winning 2 gold medals. But I do think, and as I was watching them play yesterday and just sort of comparing it to Donovan Mitchell on the Cavs, like part of the challenge, I think, for Jordan Ott is say, okay, design this sort of principled, really well-timed, modern offense, but build it around the skills that Devin Booker is very capable of. And like one of the things you can do with Donovan Mitchell, for example, is give him a pick and roll at like half court. He's so fast, he's so athletic, he's so good at pull-up threes that you can set a screen at half court, and then just sort of he can just get to the rim or get that pull-up three or get fouled in his drive to the basket. If you do that with Devin Booker, they're going to trap him. They're going to trap him at half court. They're going to make it more difficult for him to get downhill. So what do you do instead? You start giving him dribble handoffs where he starts in the left corner, he's going right, and you're doing it at the three-point line so that he can get under the three-point line. He's so effective, and he's so skilled from the mid-range that it makes everything else a little bit harder. And plus, because he's so effective in the mid-range, the help defense comes off of guys often, and you can really, if you do it the way they're doing it now, you can really find ways to attack that help defense with off-ball movement with a guy like Devin Booker.
And of course that means because Book, to a certain extent, it maximizes what he's able to do, but it's also, I think, just how he likes to play. Starting off ball sometimes in these sets, by necessity, that means that someone else is initiating those plays, right? Whether it be Colin Gillespie or Jalen Green or
Oso
Grayson
Ighodaro.
Allen or Oso Ighodaro. Oso was a legitimate point forward or point center. I guess he was playing center all the time yesterday or the other day. It's going to be other guys initiating those sets sometimes. And if it's Oso, he's running an inverted pick and roll. If it's Colin Gillespie, it's going to be more traditional based on his size. But the point being, it's going to be this kind of democratic system. And I don't think that's because, I think some people would say, well, why not just build a heliocentric offense around Devin Booker and give him the ball 100 times a game? And you could do that, but you're going to get him trapped all the time, and I don't necessarily think it optimizes the way that they're going to be able to play offense. I think Ott has been thinking about this particular challenge
100%.
For months of how you keep Devin Booker open, and not so that he's just straining to even get the ball past half court and get into an offense. And it requires other players to be able to handle a little bit of the initiation role. Grayson Allen just talked about this with Dwayne today. Dwayne posted a clip a couple of hours ago. Shout out Dwayne, of course, who is the only beat reporter who travels on the road, is a must follow for all of his coverage. But Grayson talking about, again, this idea that there is no de facto point guard on this team, that everyone's going to have a little bit of those duties, because that's just the way that they want to play this season.
I was laughing as you were talking about that because I genuinely feel like I could count the number of times Devin Booker was the guy who dribbled the ball down the court in transition on one hand. I just feel like he didn't do it at all yesterday. There were a couple of times, especially when it was getting later into the quarters when they've been playing, the guys on the floor had been playing for a long enough time that maybe they were getting a little tired, where the ball was turned over in transition, there was no full court press, and Devin Booker slowed it down a bit so that they could run a set, and he dribbled it down. Every other time when they were playing with speed, he got down the court first, essentially, and then they ran the action off the ball to get him the ball at that point. And, there were a couple drives by Oso Ighodaro in those scenarios when the defense overreacts to what Devin Booker is doing off the ball. Lanes open up, and guys have the ability of driving to the rim in that case. And the Suns, traditionally in the past few seasons, have done a poor job taking advantage of those situations. And truthfully, with Kevin Durant on the court, it was harder for guys to send 2 guys out at Devin Booker off the ball anyway, because then you could find a way to take advantage of it with Devin Booker, off the ball. But there is going to be a lot of opportunities, and I really do think, the fact that Oso Ighodaro was on the floor made it just kind of interesting that, when the ball was turned over in transition or when there was a rebound, I think every single guy dribbled it down the court. I think Ryan Dunn may have been the only guy that gave it up to someone else pretty consistently. But like if Grayson Allen, Oso Ighodaro, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal even got the ball, those guys were getting it down the court quickly and then finding a way to get Devin Booker on the ball for his, which by the way, I mentioned it again, 25 minutes for Devin Booker, and he ended this game with 24 points and 7 assists. This is a bad team, the Lakers team that they were playing, a team with 0 stars, just Austin Reeves shooting as much as he can, who's very good, don't get me wrong, but, no Luka, no LeBron. But I do still think that there's a chance that Devin Booker has some pretty huge numbers this year, just because they're going to rely on him to do so much. I say all this with the one big caveat. Jalen Green didn't play. And I'm not sure that they're going to slot Jalen Green into the Grayson Allen role there, because Grayson Allen did dribble quite a bit. He was asked to do some dribbling in this game, and maybe they just slot him into that role, and he does play relatively similar.
Grayson took 11 shots in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
It was about half threes and half, trying to force something at the rim. I think that's about what Jalen Green is going to be doing too, as the number 2 on this team. The question is, I definitely trust Jalen more than Grayson to be able to attack guys at the rim and make them feel his presence, but how much can he add that additional layer of secondary playmaking to really keep the offense moving at a quicker pace? That's going to be a huge question. And his shooting ability, Jalen's, is just off the ball, not to the level of Grayson Allen's, but we know he can shoot the ball. And he still shoots. I think he shot 40% on catch and shoots last year. So he still shoots pretty well on catch and shoots. I was literally just about to say, I just think Jalen Green probably has a pretty good chance at shooting, closer to 36, 37, 38% from 3 this year if he just kind of buys into this role as more of a Grayson Allen type, and gets a lot more of those off-ball shots. So we shall see.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, that legacy continues with reimagined classic cocktails like the Keep Walkin' 18, a fresh whiskey twist on a timeless mule. Few pairings are as enduring as Scotch and golf. For cocktail recipes and more, visit JohnnyWalker.com/clubhouse. Toast the new era of golf with Johnny Walker Black Label. Shop now at thebar.com and discover inspired cocktails at JohnnyWalker.com/clubhouse. Perfect for the 19th hole or your home bar. Please drink responsibly.
If you're a custodial supervisor at a local high school, you know that cleanliness is key, and that the best place to get cleaning supplies is from Grainger. Grainger helps you stay fully stocked on the products you trust, from paper towels and disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Plus, you can rely on Grainger for easy reordering, so you never run out of what you need. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Do you want to talk about kind of some of these guys off the bench too? Because I feel like we've covered everyone in the starting lineup, but some of these bench guys are interesting.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. Let's start with Royce O'Neal, who played, the most minutes in the important points of the game, I would say. Although Nigel Hayes-Davis played too, but he also kind of closed the game out, so he played a lot in garbage time as well. But I will say about Royce O'Neal, who ended this game with 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover. The thing about Royce O'Neal is he is just the type of player that just slots into any team and can play any style, because he's not going to overdo anything. He's not going to play outside of his role. He understands what's expected of him, and he's a capable and quick three-point shooter who can shoot both corner threes and above the break threes. And, as I think about what the expectations are for the Suns in the upcoming season, it's guys like Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal that I'm like, they still have pretty good players on this team that play. they don't have a lot of star power, but they still have NBA players that are pretty good. And Royce O'Neal is one of those guys, and you saw it in this game. And we know with Royce, like there are games where he's going to score 0 points on 0 for 6 3-pointers, and then he'll hit 4 in a row in the next game.
Yeah,
so you're never exactly 100% certain what you're going to get. But his willingness to shoot that shot and his ability to make it consistently enough to get the minutes that he's allowed to play, it's going to be important for this team. I'm grateful that he's still on the team this year.
You know, at one point this week, I just tweeted out, who do you think, addressing people who follow me or Suns fans, whatever. Most people who follow me are Suns fans, obviously. But I tweeted out just asking, who do you think is the most underappreciated player on this team going into the season? And I want to say I got about 50 replies on Twitter to that tweet. And I want to say maybe one person said, like several hours in, based on these comments, Royce O'Neal, because no one to that point had said Royce O'Neal. It was... And he's, truthfully, he's not the first guy I would have thought of either. It was a lot of like Colin Gillespie or Nigel Hayes-Davis or maybe even like Rasheer Fleming, guys who were drafted, Oso, players like that. And basically no one said Royce O'Neal, but you're right. He shows up every game. He brings a certain level of professionalism. I want him to be able to, in some ways, match the defensive intensity, the dog mentality that a guy like Dylan Brooks is bringing, right? That was one of my frustrations with both him and Grayson last year. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of that stuff is just, it's infectious. It's kind of, as a overall locker room, you either have it or you don't. And so I don't necessarily blame those guys individually, but I want them to bring an extra level of intensity this year. But in terms of their intelligence, how they're able to slot into any scheme offensively or defensively, you just have to hand it to those two guys. And we're going to be able to count on Royce a lot this season, I'm sure.
I looked up that tweet while you were talking because I wanted to know who said it. And this is no surprise to those who know him. It was Cody Hunt.
Yeah.
So shout out Cody, who I think that's a good answer to that question. I'm going to go back and read some of those replies later. I saw you tweet that and I never went back to it. I didn't realize it had so many replies. I think those will be interesting to see. He's a guy that we know what to expect. Other guys, though, I don't know. And, I think the main guys that played, like Nigel Hayes-Davis, I think Nigel Hayes-Davis was one for 6 in this game.
Uh-huh.
And the one he made was like this kind of crazy, like full court sprint into a right wing 3 that he was slightly off balance for that just swished in. And I was like, okay, here we go.
I wasn't seeing the Jimmy Butler of the EuroLeague and Nigel Hayes-Davis. I was seeing the Ray Allen of the EuroLeague with some of these threes he was taking.
The Norman Powell, but ended 1 for 6. But the thing that I noticed about Nigel Hayes-Davis when he was playing, a couple of things, but like the main thing, he does look bigger than the wings we have. Like, because as we were watching some of the EuroLeague film of him, and you look at it, he's listed at like 6'7", 6'8", or whatever, I just thought he doesn't look like he looks like 6'5", 6'6". He doesn't look that big. But actually seeing him on the court with other NBA players in this game, he does look a little bigger than I anticipated. And the other thing is, he seems to understand that he is going to be expected to be really high energy in the hustle plays. He was chasing after rebounds. He ended the game with 6 rebounds in 18 minutes. He was trying hard, including 2 offensive rebounds, I should say. He was trying hard to get loose balls and poke away and find ways to gain extra possessions, which he didn't get any steals in this game. The 2 offensive rebounds were 2 extra possessions for the Suns in this game. And I think it's going to be really important for him to try to do that because this is a massive role change for him. He was a star in the EuroLeague. And coming to the NBA as a guy who scored, MVP, as a guy who scored, he had a 50-point game, the only one in EuroLeague history. And coming from a league where you were that good, you have to be willing to understand that that's not going to be your role if you want to be good. I think of Mike James. Mike James played in the NBA like he was still in EuroLeague, and it didn't work. Like, a couple of teams gave him a chance, but he didn't find the role that would have worked for him in the NBA for him to be successful and have a longer career. And, this was one game, of course, for Nigel Hayes-Davis, but I think if he takes that mentality that he has into every single game, where I understand that I was the MVP here, but here I need to be more of a dirty work player, and if I do that, I'm going to get more opportunities to score as the season goes along, that would go a long way for him to actually get minutes on this team.
Yeah, it's going to be how he earns minutes initially. I think that's the key for Nigel, right? It's just like right now he's taking threes. He's kind of launching them because he understands that between that and hustle, that's how he earns a spot. If he earns a spot, though, we definitely know that there's more to his game. And, like as I was kind of just watching him in the corner on some of these plays, I was thinking like, man, it'd be nice to like just give him a little curl and see him come up from the corner up to the wing and see him kind of attack a defense 2-on-1. Like, I think that that's something that he's more than capable of doing. And he didn't get any opportunities to kind of show that side of himself. But I'm hoping at some point this season we're going to see that, because I think the base level of his defense, his shooting, that's what's going to keep him, that's what's going to earn him, say, 10 or 15 minutes and maybe allow him to elbow out some of these other forwards out of the rotation. He's going to be competing with Rasheer Fleming for minutes, right? He's going to be competing to a certain extent with Ryan Dunn, maybe even Royce O'Neal, like those types of guys we were just talking about. So he needs to find a way to get on the court. But once he's on the court, if that happens, there's a certain ceiling to Nigel Hayes-Davis's game, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of him as it goes along. What did you think of your boy Colin Gillespie? Colin Gillespie ended the game 3 for 9, 1 for 6 from 3, +3, but did have 8 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds.
8 points, 4 assists, didn't turn the ball over. Maybe he had one. Yeah, he had one turnover.
One turnover, yeah.
Look, he was 3 for 9 because he took 6 threes. He only made 1. But he came out there looking confident, like he knows he's an NBA player. Not just that he knows he's an NBA player, but he knows he's an NBA player who this year is going to get a lot of minutes. What did you set the over-under at? 18?
17.5, I think. Yeah.
He played 18 minutes in this game.
Yeah,
And
but they didn't. They also played him a lot at the end of the game. Actually, no, they didn't, because they played Jared Butler 16 minutes.
They played Jared
right.
Butler. They started playing Jared Butler and David Duke. I
didn't
think Colin's
factor
gonna
in,
play a lot, man. I think
yeah,
he looks like he can do it.
There was no Jalen Green, I will say. But the other part
true.
I will say, too, is that I didn't factor in that number how fast they were playing and how much they're going to need the bench to sort of help them out when they're tired, because they're just going to need guys to play minutes.
It kind of feels like, I always think about sort of the opposite of the original 7 Seconds experience, where Mike D'Antoni was the coach, mid-2000s. They went like 7 or 8 guys deep. They never used their bench. But then that last hurrah, the Alvin Gentry team, that suddenly the bench was almost as important as the starters in 2010, and you had like basically a 10-man rotation. That feels like what it's going to be again.
One of the differences, between that era and this, though, is just the effort and energy is going to be high on the defensive end here, too. That's what's going to zap it, because you can play fast offensively if you're giving up buckets on the other end consistently and still play a ton of minutes. But if you're given the same level of effort on both sides of the ball, it's going to be hard to play 40 minutes in a game without being exhausted. Colin, though, I will say, he mentioned multiple times in interviews that some of the things the coaching staff talked to him about was shooting off the dribble, and he took a couple of threes off the dribble in this game. And I think if you're looking at Ty Jerome, we keep mentioning him, but if you're looking at Ty Jerome as sort of the model of what the Suns are trying to get out of Colin Gillespie, not to that level, but just to that style of play, part of what made Ty Jerome so good last year is just a fearlessness in taking threes off the bench to put pressure on guys. So anytime guys were going under on screens, he was just pulling up from 3, and he would shoot them in transition as well. It was just not something that he was afraid to do. If someone was backpedaling, if someone was under a screen, he was launching. And I think for Colin Gillespie, the numbers are good in the NBA for his pull-up 3, but there's also such a small sample size that it's really difficult to know how much that's actually going to translate if he's taking 2 or 3 a game.
There has to be something that they know. I keep thinking about Colin, like just based. They must have data from not the training
G League
camp.
too.
What am I? Not yes, maybe from the G League, but aren't they like doing all sorts of weird like statistical tracking on these guys in the new practice center that was just built a couple years ago?
They fully track their bodies at any moment that they're playing basketball. Yeah.
But they
have all the data.
They must also have so much shooting data on what those guys are doing in that building, and a lot of that must have contributed to them really believing in Colin this summer, to the point where they would not go out and pick up another veteran point guard, as they so easily could have, right? To just say that, no, this is the guy, and we're going to make him shoot threes next year, shoot more threes, of course, because we believe that he can do it. We'll see. Maybe
we
in
mentioned,
China.
I want to get to
Brooklyn.
I want to get to the rookies and also the sort of non-guaranteed contract guys too. So we'll get to them. But I want to say we mentioned Nick Richards earlier, but I want to give him a shout out again. He had 9 points in this game, only had 3 rebounds, but he was plus 12 overall, and he played really well, 4 for 7, multiple dunks. The thing that stood out to me in this game in particular is the willingness to run sort of off-ball guard-to-guard or wing-to-guard screens for this team allows for more time for the centers that play to be in the dunker spot. Like the difference between Oso Ighodaro in the game and Nick Richards in the game was dramatic in that when Devin Booker was running off a screen with Oso Ighodaro, like a dribble handoff, it was with Oso Ighodaro with the ball. But when Nick Richards was in the game, that may have been Royce O'Neal handing him the ball in a dribble handoff. It wasn't Nick Richards because Nick Richards can't make the passes to cutters in the same way. So Nick Richards was sort of sitting in the dunker spot a little bit more than Oso Ighodaro. And also I think that was the case with Kaman Malawach. There wasn't a ton of on-ball actions with Malawach in the same way, who we'll get to in a second. But I do wonder if the Suns can find ways to generate points out of the dunker spot in a way that honestly they've never really done in Devin Booker's career. Because so often it's the centers coming up to screen for Devin Booker in the past because Devin Booker is usually good at attacking the bigs in those scenarios. But if they can find a way, maybe Nick Richards is better at that than he is at the traditional screen and roll stuff. I don't really know. I just know in this game I thought he did a good job in the dunker spot. And maybe he can find a way to... The timing there is a little easier for him to find ways to score.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was good. I don't really know what my expectations are of Nick Richards. I think he's one of those guys on the roster where I don't really have expectations of him at this point, so anything I can get is gravy.
If he can be serviceable,
yeah, that's good.
It's an upgrade
Sure.
from last year. He was a starting center last year, which he's not that. You know, and in this game he wasn't either. Oso Ighodaro, one thing we know for sure, at least based on this game, is Oso and Nick are above Kaman Malawach in the rotation. Malawach didn't even step foot onto the court until the game was over. And then he ended up playing 10 minutes, basically, mostly entirely in the fourth quarter.
Which, of course,
of this game.
Frustrated me a little bit just because he was forced to play entirely with Jared Butler as his point guard. There was one really good alley-oop to Malawach. I don't remember. Was that Jared Butler throwing him that pass? Okay, that was Jared Butler. I think that was Jared Butler's lone assist. Real quick, do you want to say Jared Butler? Any thoughts? He
Pretty came out in this game, honestly.
He came out shooting. I don't know.
He had 5 turnovers, so you know that is what it is. But the game was so sloppy at that point of the game. Like he's playing with Jordan Goodwin on the floor. David Duke Jr. is playing, and Rasheer Fleming and Kaman Malawach are on the court too. Like you're not going to generate a ton of great offense out of those guys. But I thought his ball handling, his getting into the paint, he did score. He had 12 points.
He had 12
He's one of the leading scorers on the team.
No, he's actually a bucket. Like he can get buckets, which maybe this team needs more of. But it did give a little bit like summer league point guard vibes,
yes,
where you
that's exactly right.
Everyone gets mad at their summer league point guard because it's like, okay, dude, but like pass the ball to the rookies. Yeah. Give it to the rookies. We want to see the rookies. So I don't know. I think you can definitely see the difference between Jared Butler and Jordan Goodwin, right?
As I was watching this game, one thing I will say is I was thinking about your argument of Goodwin versus Butler, which, by the way, we do know that their guaranteed date, I think, is in like February for these guys. So technically they can keep both of them on the roster for a little longer. And I don't know, it's like a prorated amount that counts towards the overall salary cap or something. I'm not going to get into those numbers because I don't fully understand them. But technically they don't need to cut one of them before the season begins. But I was thinking about your argument between the two. And as I was watching Butler play, I thought, okay, like his dribble penetration, it's probably top 4 on this team, top 5 maybe on this team.
Right.
And I see a world where you're just going to need a guy like that at some point of the season if you're missing guys. So I can see that being sort of a necessity. Whereas with Jordan Goodwin, like he's got no offense. And we know that about Jordan Goodwin, but he does set the tone defensively in the way that they want. So they're going to have a decision to make at some point of the season there.
I see Jordan Goodwin as more of a role-playing guard who easily fits into a team that actually wants to be good. I see Jared Butler more as a stopgap piece that allows prevents your offense from going into complete free fall, right? If the goal is, let's just make sure that in case there's an injury here, we don't bottom out completely. That's where I think Jared Butler plays more of a role. So which you prioritize between those two things? Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, let's talk about the rookies. What do you think of Malawach?
Let's start with Malawach. Yeah. So Malawach, I think the thing that stood out immediately, and I saw everyone saying this online, so it wasn't, unique to me and my thought here, is just that he looks huge. And like that does matter. But as a rookie to step on the court and just dwarf everyone on the court, it's pretty crazy. And he doesn't just look huge size wise; he's bulked up. Like, he looks pretty strong as well, which we did talk about, last week. But he just looks stronger. He looks bigger. He looks massive. And the thing with him that stands out immediately with him too is he's that big, but he doesn't look awkward when he moves around. He still does not know exactly where to be as quick as the NBA players who've been in the NBA a longer time. And, somebody like Osu Ighodaro, who that just comes naturally to him to sort of know his place on the floor in a really quick way. For Malawach, he's capable. He has the body to move. He's still massive, but still doesn't quite know where to be. And it's just the coaching staff's job to help make that click with him as quickly as possible, because it really feels like once that starts clicking with him, he can be a player who, even in a really small role, like if his role is just stand at the rim in the dunker spot, cut at the right time, catch and score, catch lobs and score, and then block shots at the rim, he can do that pretty quickly if he knows where to be. And then from there, it's about how big can you expand that role. It's the conversation we've been having with him, but it really stood out to me how big he looked in this game.
I was just looking at the box score to make sure. Yeah, he only had one foul in 9 minutes. I think it's baby steps with him. They want his conditioning right first. And just in a small burst, he was able to provide that little burst of energy yesterday, of course, in garbage time. But kind of similar to the conversation we had with Nigel Hayes-Davis, where it's what can you do just to get on the court in the first place? It's like you're saying with Malawach, what's going to get him on the court for 10 to 12 minutes is his ability to protect the rim and drop and then catch lobs and stay in the dunker spot. But also just be running the floor as hard as he possibly can. I firmly believe, seeing him yesterday, that that's something he can manage for 10 to 15 minutes. Can he do more than that if we need him to at some point this season? I don't know. But he's huge. He is absolutely huge.
Other thing I'll say with him is, we're just going to be monitoring his rebounding all season, because his rebounding for his size was pretty low. And they played sort of dual big lineups, if you will, in Duke. So the question is how much is that what affected his overall numbers, and how can he rebound? This game, he finished in 10 minutes with 6 rebounds, 1 offensive rebound overall. And that's pretty good on a per minute basis, but it wasn't against real NBA players or with real NBA players for the most part. So really it's going to be when he gets time on the floor, is his rebounding there right away? And also for him too, this is the conversation with DeAndre, and don't just rebound when the ball bounces to you. Can you get a little physical off the ball on those rebounds and push guys around so that you're getting rebounds that are sort of outside your area? The Steven Adams rebounds, if you will. Can he find ways to do that? So I'm going to watch that with him. Rasheer Fleming also played 12 minutes. Kaman only played 10. Rasheer Fleming played 12. Only scored once. Good play, though. A cut that he scored on. This dude can move. That's the other thing that stood out with Rasheer Fleming, too. He can move his feet defensively. Jordan Ott said he looks like an NBA player right away. That's what they're talking about with him, because, ultimately he was a second-round pick. The first thing you got to figure out is, are they guys worth putting the time, money, and development into? And it's pretty clear with him that he is one of those guys based on what he's done in college. But just seeing him move around right away, it's like there's something there with him. He's big and can move his feet pretty fast.
I think it's been interesting to hear multiple references made by other players or coaches that something they're working on with Rasheer is the confidence to know that he's an NBA player. That makes me wonder, kind of just a little bit more about his demeanor and if he maybe doesn't, or if he has struggled with that confidence in the past. I don't really know where that's coming from, but it's just been something interesting to hear. But when you watch him, move, as you're saying, he moves really well. He's so long. It's absolutely ridiculous how long this guy is. So from my standpoint, he's going to be battling with a couple guys for minutes. Nigel Hayes-Davis again. If he just makes threes, you'll find a way. You'll find a way to get that guy on the court. He's huge.
Yep. Overall, I think for what the expectations are for the rookies, a pretty good showing from them.
We wanted Kobe Bryant to play, but he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other part. I don't know why, but I think
no disrespect to David Duke Jr. But David Duke Jr. played 10 games in this. 10 games. He played 10 minutes in this game, and I'm not 100% sure why you would have played him those minutes over Kobe Bryant, who's signed to a 2-way contract. David Duke Jr., of course, on a non-guaranteed kind of training camp deal. So I don't know, but yeah, I
hopefully he plays the next. Yeah, the next two games are both in China. They're both at least here in the Pacific time zone. Very early in the morning.
You have to play the guy named Kobe in China. At the very least. Are you kidding me?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch either of those games as they air, but my plan is to watch both of those, and we're going to, of course, talk about that on our next Made Feed podcast. We got time before that. We're going to record a Patreon podcast as well. I will say, for the guys who put this team together, Brian Gregory, Matt Ishbia, Jordan Ott, a good showing for them and their agenda. At least in preseason game 1. If they can continue this kind of effort and, even a higher level of effort as the regular season rolls along, what Matt Ishbia said about going to games and win or not, if you feel good about the effort and the energy on the floor, then you're going to feel good about the team overall. I think that's true. I think if they do try this hard, if they play try hard basketball all year round, I'll feel a little better about this team overall. And I think there's places for it to go as these young guys get a little older, get a little better, and maybe you can find guys who fit this system even better as the season rolls along. Any last thoughts before we go on this one?
Man, it's a long way till Friday. I'm definitely not going to be able to watch the game Friday morning live. Sunday morning, for once, us on the East Coast, actually, we have it slightly easier than you guys because I think it's like 8 a.m. On the East Coast, and then for you guys, it's just there's no way.
I think it might be 4:30 a.m. Last time I looked, I think
I could be up. I could be up at 7:30 on a Sunday morning. I could do that. So I'll be watching that game live at the very least. Probably no playback though. No playback for either of those games.
Yeah, probably. Sorry, we considered it, but yeah, it might be too hard. There's no guarantee that could happen. So, but thanks everyone for listening. Yeah, and join. Now's a good time. I've said this before, but the beginning of the season is a good time. Sam, I know we're going to talk about this more, but this will be our 8th season covering the Phoenix Suns. But now is a good time. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, you get an extra podcast every week for just $6 a month. And you can join our Discord that's full of Suns fans talking Suns basketball and everything else, literally, on that Discord. But that's patreon.com/thetimeline. And also, if you feel in the need of some coffee, go to alchemyroast.com and buy some coffee with the promo code Timeline. But thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back very soon.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it. And trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Ro Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Ro Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you can go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.